and Employment Support Coordinator with Autism Nova Scotia's Cape Breton chapter, located here in Sydney. I'm originally from Cape Breton, just moved back this past summer, so it's really great to be home. And I think I have a good advantage of kind of knowing the landscape of Cape Breton and the employments and all the stuff that's kind of offered for individuals with autism and disabilities.
Sure. All right. So if you're ready, we can dive into the questions that we have.
I am ready to go.
Okay, awesome. So what are your roles as Autism Nova Scotia's Autism Outreach and Employment Support Coordinator?
Well, so one of my roles with that position is just to outreach. Emma, I think you were the first person that I met with when I started this job. So just going to meet other people in different kind of services and offering different types of programs for individuals with autism. So I do a lot of emailing and phone calls to our community partners like Breton Ability or Horizon Achievement, like the YMCA, Family Resource Center. So just kind of understanding a little bit more of what they do and allowing them to understand a little bit more of what I do with Autism Nova Scotia. And in doing that, my outreach into schools and trying to find job seekers to either refer them onto Autism Nova Scotia's pre-employment programs, or if they don't really fit those eligibility requirements, or if they're not really into a pre-employment program or whatever, then I will refer them to Breton Ability or the Y or somewhere where they feel like they're that they would be a good fit. And the employment support coordination is kind of just doing that. If the person identifies as having autism and if they're working age in Canada and they want to join our pre-employment programs, then I will obviously refer them to my coworkers. But if they, in outreaching to schools and kind of, talking to different people, if they don't identify as having autism or maybe our location isn't really accessible for them, then I kind of, I partner with different kind of employment agencies and I will refer them to them if they have the capacity. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I do outreach to community organizations to find out what's all the great things that are happening in Cape Breton for supports, and just trying to get the word out there because Cape Breton's chapter of Autism Nova Scotia is the newest. I think we were established in 2019. We have been around in different capacities. I believe it was the Autism Society of Cape Breton before we amalgamated with Autism Nova Scotia. So just trying to get the word out there about our pre-employment programs because they are relatively new. And yeah, just trying to make as many connections as possible.
Awesome. So I guess what types of programming do you guys offer in terms of like pre-employment, anything else really that Autism Nova Scotia has?
Sure. Yeah. So I'll start with the pre-employment stuff. So we have a number of different pre-employment programs. The first one that an individual would be connected with would be Launchpad. And so Launchpad is basically gaining employability skills. So we work on resume and cover letter prep. We do accommodations and adaptations in the workplace, what that looks like. We do disclosure statements or work on disclosure statements or advocate for individuals to disclose their disability if they choose to do so. Obviously, that's completely 100% their choice. But if they want support with that, that's something that we could do. So the Launchpad, it's about a 12-week comprehensive course. It's very kind of structured. It's within working hours, so it kind of gives the individual a bit of an idea of time management and kind of punctuation and all that stuff as well. So, and once they feel comfortable and once they've done the 12-week Launchpad program, then they have the option to go into Career Quest. Career Quest is essentially a supportive employment group where people apply to jobs in a safe environment. So there's one-on-one sessions with that, and then there's like a group kind of facilitation where the individuals kind of talk amongst themselves and talk about like, oh, I saw a job at Wendy's, or I saw a job here and there, and then they kind of break into one-on-one rooms with a facilitator, and they actually do apply for that job, and they go through the job ad, the individual skills to kind of see if it matches and if it would be a good fit, and then we support that individual with actually applying to that job. And the beauty of Career Quest is that the goal of it is to get people comfortable with applying to jobs. So we've had to do it virtually over the past couple of cohorts because of COVID and all that stuff, but when we are able to do it in person, those people, they get a chance to have a group type of dynamic, and they get a chance to actually have some time with a facilitator, so they can kind of go over their employment goals and get help with searching on Indeed and Career Beacon and all those things that are quite challenging for the best of people. To navigate those online platforms are quite challenging, and so we work on that in the pre-employment programs as well. Another thing that we offer is interview prep. So we do direct interviews if the person requires that. So we would meet with them before. We would prep them for any kind of questions that maybe arise, depending on the sector of job, whether it's kind of cleaning or customer service. We would just kind of prepare them for those type of questions. We would go over things like, interpersonal kind of communication, small talk, whether or not to shake hands or maintain eye contact, some of those things that individuals find challenging. And then through there, we have an employment support group, which is held online as of right now, but it's essentially anybody that wants to gain employment, has employment, or wishes maybe in the future, or that they've had employment in the past, just to kind of talk about what employment looks like these days, especially with COVID, with lockdowns and with, the social distancing and the masks, how to navigate a lunchroom when everybody's wearing a mask. A lot of individuals on the autism spectrum rely on nonverbal communication. So how would you go about communicating with someone where you couldn't see their face and their facial expressions? So we gear them up toward, to that and get them prepared for all those different dynamics of the workplace that we encounter these days.
Awesome. No, that's great. A service that's definitely not seen really in many places. I think you guys are probably the only one in Cape Breton, I guess, that would kind of specialize in autism anyways. So our next question, I guess we might not have to go over, because it was about the types of employment supports that you guys offer. So I guess that you kind of already touched on that with Launchpad and Career Quest. So we can go ahead and I guess skip that for now.
What I could do, Emma, is I could talk a little bit about some of the social and recreation programs that we have at the chapter as well.
Yeah, that'd be good. I find even like with my program, I have people that are looking for social programs. They're very hard to find in the community, and a lot of people aren't really sure how to get involved.
Yeah, definitely. So right now we have what is called Chat and Chillers. And so that is a social group for individuals on the autism spectrum that are 18 and plus. So it's, it's kind of like a peer support type of situation. You get together with your peers, like-minded individuals, possibly going through some of the same challenges and successes that you are. And the chapter, not myself, because I'm more geared towards employment, but the chapter coordinator and the program facilitators, they develop kind of events and special outings for the groups to kind of go and, to have coffee or to be amongst community. There's a lot of things happening with like swim classes and taekwondo for the chapter in the next couple of months. There are pre-teens and teen programs as well, kind of the same peer support type of thing, getting together with your peers, but just different activities, more geared towards youth and not adults. We are currently in the process of starting up a quick start program, which would be toddler age individuals and families that have someone on the autism spectrum and kind of, learning through play and all that stuff as well. So, as we grow as a chapter and as we get more popular, I believe Halifax, where the original Autism Nova Scotia was located, they've had a ton of success with a whole different variety of different programs. And I think as we kind of grow here in Cape Breton, they're going to start kind of trickling down to us as well. So it's really exciting to be a part of something that's kind of just starting off the ground. And I think there's lots of good things to come.
Oh, for sure. And I've seen a lot of the programs in Halifax too, and they're amazing. Things that I would never even expect to be programs. But I'm excited to see them come here.
I know,
it's great. Yeah. All right. So I guess who is able to access the services offered by Autism Nova Scotia? You touched on it a little bit. Mm-hmm. But would an individual have to have a formal diagnosis to receive services?
No, so they can self-identify. So that's perfectly fine. I think there's not a lot of professionals in Nova Scotia that do the testing after school age. So, I do understand, and I think as an organization, we understand that having that formal diagnosis is kind of a barrier to people, right? So if you just self-identify, that's completely fine.
Okay, awesome. No, that's good to know, because I feel like a lot of people think that because they don't have that formal diagnosis, no, they're not going to be able to access these services. But it's good that you guys are keeping that open. Accessibility is something that really needs to be, I guess, brought into a lot of services.
I mean, we're an inclusive service, right? So
for sure, yeah. All right. So what is Ready, Willing, and Able? I know that I've heard about it before. I guess I'm not super versed in what it is, and I'm sure a lot of people aren't really sure. I think it's a newer thing.
Yeah, it's quite new. It was developed in, I believe, 2014. So it's a national initiative funded by the Government of Canada to promote real work for real pay for individuals on the autism spectrum and or with an intellectual disability. So I believe it was just autism specific at first, but they opened it up after kind of doing a bit of a gap analysis and wanting to include individuals that identify as having an intellectual disability as well. So essentially, it is real work for real pay. So it's a national initiative. My role with Ready, Willing, and Able is to facilitate jobs and to find job seekers, obviously. So so I'll backtrack a little bit. Ready, Willing, and Able was established between Inclusion Canada and the Autism Alliance Spectrum Disorder. And I might be getting that part wrong, but so those two organizations came together and obviously wanted to do something with inclusive employment, and they got together and they sought out funding from the government to give support for individuals that are trying to find meaningful work for real pay. So my job, like I said, is to outreach to Nova Scotia work sites, to Breton Ability, to Horizon Achievement, anybody that really deals with employment here on the island, and in hopes of partnering with them to obviously provide job postings and inclusive hiring opportunities for individuals with autism or intellectual disability. So a lot of what I do is I coordinate and try to get in touch with existing national partners that Ready, Willing, and Able has had over the years. And some of those in Cape Breton include the Superstore, Valley Village, PepsiCo, Pure Later. What are a couple other ones? Sobeys is another one. So, so my role is to engage those employers in hopes of getting job ads. And so with those job ads, my job is to take those job ads and use plain language and reword them. So they're a lot of more white space, bigger fonts, more structured. So it's kind of easily accessible for an individual to read it and to comprehend. And so once that job posting is complete by myself, then I would send it to my partners. So the YMCA, Northside Employment Resource Center over in North Sydney, Breton Ability, obviously. And so it's about generating a big pool of qualified applicants, not just having one or two people apply and me facilitate jobs just for an individual. It's more about kind of seeing who's who's hiring inclusively, no matter really what the job. You know, it could be a professional job. We've had a lot of information technology jobs come up with IBM in the last couple of months that have been successfully filled by people with autism and or an intellectual disability. Myself, I've approached Protocase here in Sydney, who is probably one of the biggest employers in Cape Breton. And what they do is custom enclosures for engineers and scientists and stuff, but they have a whole array of different types of jobs. And so they've recently signed on to agree to hire inclusively. You know, so it's just about keeping a good relationship, keeping the lines of communication open with those employers, and kind of slowly, as RWA kind of expands and people learn about it and more employers kind of sign on here in Cape Breton, that'll enable me to kind of reach out to more of a broader kind of spectrum of different services and sectors. As of right now, it's mostly just like Sobeys and Superstore and some of those. But in hopes of getting Ready, Willing, and Able approved for another round of funding in the next couple of weeks, we're hoping to expand and to kind of gain a little bit more employer engagement here in Cape Breton, because there is only a few national partners that already exist. You know, some of the bigger cities like Toronto or Vancouver, they would probably have a big array of different kind of you know, businesses and all that stuff that would have already signed on. But unfortunately, you know, Cape Breton's landscape and just the size of it, you know, doesn't really have that capacity right now. But you know, we're hoping that's going to change in the future. And I think, you know, part of my job is to show that RWA can succeed here in Cape Breton, and for it to be renewed during the next phase of funding.
For sure. So I guess my next question would be, how did you end up getting connected with Ready, Willing, and Able? And how has this benefited service users of Autism Nova Scotia?
Sure. So the executive director of Autism Nova Scotia, Cynthia Carroll, she actually sits on the board of directors, I believe, of the Canadian Alliance of Autism. And so Autism Nova Scotia is, I guess you could say it, like a host agency. So everybody that's connected with Ready, Willing, and Able that works for Ready, Willing, and Able is connected through an employer that has a connection or partnership with Ready, Willing, and Able. So Inclusion Canada, so Nova Scotia Association for Community Living, now known as Inclusion Nova Scotia or Inclusion Ontario. So they all have partnerships with Ready, Willing, and Able, and so they staff individuals within their organization, but they give them an extra role to work with Ready, Willing, and Able for like a part-time type of thing. So my role is really 20 hours a week autism outreach employment support coordinator and 20 hours of employment outreach coordinator with Ready, Willing, and Able. So I believe that most employees with Ready, Willing, and Able have some sort of partnership through their host agency that's connected with Ready, Willing, and Able, and that's how I'm connected with them.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, no, I didn't know that's how you would be connected. So has a similar program to Ready, Willing, and Able been offered in other parts of, I guess, Nova Scotia or other provinces in the country? And I guess if there have been, and if you've heard of any, do you have any success stories that you could share?
I definitely, I know that there's been some inclusive hiring initiatives in the past. I'm not aware of the organizational name and when or where that they were kind of located, but I do know that Ready, Willing, and Able has been Canada-wide, basically. They were in 20 cities up until this previous year, and then they've expanded into 10 more cities. And one of those 10 cities, luckily enough, is Cape Breton. So, you know, there's been a lot of success within Ready, Willing, and Able over the past 7 to 8 years since they've formed. I believe, I don't have the numbers on me, but you know, I believe Newfoundland and Alberta are probably leading the pack within outcomes and jobs filled within Ready, Willing, and Able. So which is kind of surprising, because you would think it would be kind of like a bigger city like Ontario or you know, somewhere in Toronto, but I think it's just about the capacity and the education. That's another thing that I tend to provide most businesses is education on inclusive hiring. You know, I don't think a lot of people or managers or HR people, you know, I don't think there's a lot of experience with hiring someone with an intellectual disability or autism, and there's a lot of unknowns with that too. You know, I've had questions from businesses like, oh, you know, will my liability insurance go up, or will this individual be under my insurance for the business? And obviously, yes. I mean, if they're an employer, they're just like, or if they're an employee of your business, they're just like anybody else. You know, they're under the same kind of category of, you know, having benefits and you know, getting paid a living wage and having all those positive things come from having you know, real work for real pay and all that stuff. So there has been a lot of success stories. You know, people that didn't really have the confidence to maybe seek out jobs in the past have been connected with Ready, Willing, and Able through one of the employment agencies that they're connected with. And you know, I don't have any names or a specific story to tell right now, but there has been a huge success rate. You know, it's a great thing to come home from work and feel productive, and I know that I've had that for the past 20 odd some years, but it's really important for anybody that wants to have that experience, to have the opportunity to be a productive member of society and you know, feel as though they have, you know, opportunities to work and be a part of their community. Is a wonderful thing. And you know, I hope that in the future there are more organizations or initiatives that kind of promote this type of work and kind of facilitate those jobs that people might not have been comfortable with applying for before, because they might not have had a lot of good response, or they might not have had a callback. But you know, the beautiful thing with RWA is if an employer signs on to hire inclusively, they, you know, through me or through the individual, the individual's agency that they work with, their application can be flagged with Ready, Willing, and Able or an inclusive hire. And not to say that they're going to guarantee to get that job. I mean, if there's someone that is more skilled and more trained and has more experience, then obviously that's going to be the case that person's going to get the job. But it's about giving the people opportunity and giving them a chance. You know, I think anything can happen if you can get yourself in an interview. You know, so just kind of supporting individuals and supporting employers, you know, to be ready for inclusive hiring. And I always say, Ready, Willing, and Able, you know, off the bat, it sounds like that name is just for the individuals, the job seekers, but it's actually about getting businesses and employers ready, willing, and able to hire inclusively as well.
For sure. Yeah, no. And I guess a lot of employers too, from my experiences, I guess like working with the population that I'm working with currently, they may be open to working with people that say have a disability, but they're not really sure what it entails. And that's the thing, like education needs to come in. They need to be aware of, you know, how this is going to work in order to keep, I guess, the person that they're hiring feeling comfortable and to set them up for success, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then that's the beautiful thing about RWA is we come with funding options as well. So if an individual that gets hired for a Ready, Willing, and Able job, if they need an accommodation or an adaptation in the workplace, that, you know, we could provide funding for that. If the individual needs transportation to get to work for up to 3 months, we can provide funding for that. If the person needs a job coach and the agency doesn't have the capacity, or if they've expanded their funds for job coaching for the fiscal year, we can provide funding for that. And Ready, Willing, and Able actually provides services for entrepreneurship as well. So if anybody, same guidelines obviously, so you have to identify as having an intellectual disability or autism. But if you have a business plan and if you're looking for startup money, we can apply to Ready, Willing, and Able for that funding as well to get your business up and running. If you're looking to go back to university and you need, once again, adaptations or accommodations, whether technology, and Emma, you mentioned Neil Squires before we started, and they're a great organization that uses technology for adaptations. So if an individual is looking for that type of support for post-secondary, or like a tutor or support taking notes and all that stuff, we can apply for funding for that individual as well. And that funding follows the individual. It doesn't just go to the university or Autism Nova Scotia or Breton Ability. It follows the individual. So it's it's the individual's funding, and obviously receipts have to be kind of kept and all that stuff. But so there's a whole long list of things that we can support, including post-secondary, like I said, employment and self-employment.
Yeah, that's awesome. There's actually a lot more services than I thought Ready, Willing, and Able was able to provide individuals. That's great to hear. So I guess what are some of the goals you have for as like running your programs right now in the CBRM?
Sure. Well, like I said, I think because we're so new and the pre-employment programs are so new here in Sydney via Autism Nova Scotia, just my goal is to do as much of this as possible. I've been lucky enough to get invited to the YMCA case managers meeting, Northside employment staff meeting. I've done presentation with the Department of Community Services team down here in Sydney as well. So just kind of spreading the word, and everybody has been really excited at just knowing or finding out like a new tool in your toolbox, right? Especially for those people that work for DCS or the Nova Scotia Health Authority, or even Emma, Breton Ability, or whoever, there's a new service kind of in town, and I think it'll benefit everybody, I think, because we are autism specific, so we can only work with autism or people that identify as having autism, but we're here to collaborate and support and enhance all of the other kind of services as well. So that's something that I mentioned in my outreach to some of those organizations and governments, kind of Department of Community Services and stuff. Not only are we kind of providing pre-employment programs and the Ready, Willing, and Able stuff, but we're also kind of here to support and to collaborate with with individuals like Breton Ability and some of your past speakers here on your live webinar series, like Colleen McKenzie from Crossroads, and all those great, unbelievable little organizations that are doing huge things in Cape Breton. Just kind of seeing if there's room to collaborate, getting the word out there, so I can make appropriate referrals and they can make appropriate referrals to me as well.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it's good. I find too, like, even when I started, a lot of organizations in the community, I guess, like, struggle to find specific services for, we'll say, autistic individuals. So it's really good that you're able to provide that, and that you're reaching out to these organizations to show them what you have to offer and what you can support them in. We have a question. We'll actually do this right now. So Tracy Wilson's asked you if you would consider doing a session at Nova Scotia LA conference that's the CBRL is hosting in Sydney this fall.
Yes, I would love to do that. Tracy, is that library? Yeah, the Cape Breton Regional Library. Yeah. Hi, Tracy. It's been a while. Yeah, I would absolutely love to do something like that.
Awesome. This is exciting. We're creating connections.
It's true.
It's a webinar.
True. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of familiar names on the participant list, so that's awesome.
It is great. All right, so I guess, like, how long are you going to be working with Ready, Willing, and Able? Is there a certain time limit to that?
I hope not. So we've been approved for the expansion until September 2022. The budget is going to be released in the next probably couple of weeks. So we will be funded again. It just depends on how much. So it is in the 10 new cities or communities that Ready, Willing, and Able is in. I mean, it's kind of up to us to make it as successful as possible. Not us as in like a whole, like I'm not giving you guys jobs or anything, but
Yeah.
it's up to me and my coworkers in the new in the new communities with Ready, Willing, and Able to make it as much of a success as possible. You know, and that doesn't mean having jobs and having them filled right now, but what we're doing, like this is a success. You know, Breton Ability signing an MOU is a success. So, you know, getting towards that, and you know, February and March is always a real slow time for employment. You know, after the Christmas and seasonal kind of stuff. So, you know, my goal is obviously to get it approved and refunded for the next 3 years, where Cape Breton wouldn't just be an expansion; it would be a full-time existing community that Ready, Willing, and Able will stay in until, knock on wood, I mean, hopefully forever. But you know, there's usually an end date with those things. Hopefully, it's very, very far in the future, because I think, you know, knowing the Cape Breton landscape and the employment landscape here in Cape Breton, and the, you know, the trouble that we've had over the past number of decades, and how, you know, we're kind of starting to turn the corner, and we're, you know, there's a lot of jobs that are being filled by, you know, international students that are going to university here, which is amazing. So it's my goal is to get as many new employers, not pre-existing national partners with Ready, Willing, and Able, but just new employers. You know, my goal is to reach out to Parks Canada. You know, I've been in contact with the Department of Lands and Forests. They are hiring for their summer positions right now. Protocase was a big one for me, because it's one of the biggest employers in Cape Breton. So, and they've hired inclusively before, so they have the education and the knowledge, and it's just kind of waiting for the right job, and the right person. But yeah, you know, my goal is just to make it as successful as possible, to kind of create awareness, to give as much education to community partners and to employers as possible. You know, because I think we are such a small community, but the numbers of individuals that identify as having autism or an intellectual disability are quite high. And you know, I think we see more inclusive hiring as a whole, which is great. So I'm just hoping to kind of expand that and enhance it a little bit over the next.
Yeah, no, and you're doing a great job already too. I don't remember exactly when you got into your position, but there's been a lot of growth since the beginning of your position with Autism Nova Scotia. And it's great to see you kind of expand on that. So we're to our last question. I guess it's not super related to programs or services that you offer, but what do you like most about working at Autism Nova Scotia?
What I like most? Well, I've always known about Autism Nova Scotia. I've worked in many nonprofits across the province and across the Maritimes. And Autism Nova Scotia, whenever I dealt with them or I was in a conference with their staff, it just, the utmost professionalism and organized place that I've ever worked. You know, we're a rural chapter, so there's only a couple of individuals that I work with here in Cape Breton, but you know, through kind of having support through our Halifax chapter and some of the other rural chapters, there's just an element of support that I don't think I've really experienced in past employments. And you know, I think our executive director, Cynthia Carroll, has just, you know, I don't think she's really well known here in Cape Breton, but she does great work and she advocates so much and very hard for her staff, and obviously for the autism community. She puts in a lot of work to kind of, you know, for these new chapters to kind of spurt oats and to be developed and all that stuff. So I just feel really supported. I enjoy the fact that it's so specialized in autism, which I've never had before. I've always kind of worked with a broad spectrum of different kind of challenges and all that stuff, much like you, Emma, we were talking about before. But to just specifically work with individuals with autism has been really great. You know, like I said, the autism community here in Cape Breton has been really supportive over the past couple months since I started in November, and it just keeps on getting better and better with just kind of, you know, making connections and actually, you know, running into people at the grocery store that would have seen me on a presentation or word of mouth, and just, you know, kind of saying and just, you know, asking for advice or different programs. And because Autism Nova Scotia is so well connected in the province and has made so many partners, that it really makes my job easier to outreach and to know what else is out there, because of the connections that have already been established through Autism Nova Scotia. So it just makes my job a little bit easier.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear. So I guess we've reached the end of our webinar. I typically open up for a question period. So if anybody that is here wants to ask questions, you can put them in the chat. You can turn your mic and your video on, totally up to you. We'll just leave a couple minutes for people to ask some questions for Garth. I'm wondering, do we have a shy group today or not?
I'll give everybody my contact information, just in case. My email is gpotter, Potter, at autismns.ca. I can be reached by telephone at 902-202-4761. Our location, our chapter's location is up on Military Road, up off of Lingan Road, near the old radar base. 16 Military Road. So if anybody, I think that it's accessible by transit as well. So that's great. I believe we're up by New Dawn Enterprises and a couple other small organizations that house people up there, which is great. I'm trying to think of something else. If anybody does want more information on Ready, Willing, and Able, and if I haven't touched on anything, their website is probably one of the easiest accessible websites that I've ever been to. It's readywillingandable.ca. So if anybody wants to take a look at that.
You know, I can say too, I've been on that website, like even before, I guess you became connected with them. Super easy to navigate. I guess I wasn't too sure on how to get connected with them, but if you're looking for information on what they're doing, you can easily find it.
Yeah, and then it's the staff list and all the locations across the country are easily accessible as well. I don't know if anybody's joining us here outside of Cape Breton, but you know, there are across Nova Scotia, there's a couple of more RWA staff in Halifax and all across the country. So
I feel like nobody's gonna ask any questions, but we'll give it another minute and then
yeah, sure. No, that's
call it a day.
Yeah, no worries. I find that whenever I'm kind of someone in the background watching some of these things, a question always comes like a minute after everything ends and you sign off. It's like, oh, I should have asked that. So everybody has my email if they have any questions.
Yeah.
Our intake is relatively straightforward and very simple as well. So I know that filling out forms isn't a very fun thing to do, but it can be kind of intimidating sometimes, but ours is relatively simple with just past job experience and all that stuff. So it's relatively straightforward.
Sure. Also, as well, if people don't get the chance to write down Garth's email, I'm going to send out an email later with his contact info so you can get it there. As well, I have been recording this webinar, so if you wanted to share it with colleagues or if you wanted to watch it again, you'll have the opportunity. I think tomorrow morning is when I'll have that out. All right, so I think we're good to go. Tracy said thank you. Kaylee as well said thanks for the great info. Thank you guys so much for joining us. And thank you, Garth, for presenting.
Thank you for having me, and thanks to everybody for tuning in. Hopefully, I was able to give you some relevant information. And if anybody does have any questions, feel free to reach out. Looking forward to connecting.
All right. Thank you so much. Everyone have a great day.
Bye, everybody. Thanks, Emma.
Bye-bye. You're welcome.